Hello friends, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Church channel. I want to talk to you people out there who have 12 gauge shotguns with pistol grips. I know there's lots of people love them. I mean, they make your shotgun, whether it's a pump or a semi-automatic. Sorry guys, I got a chest cold, so I'm gonna make sure I keep the noodle wet. So semi-automatic or pump, shotguns with probably a short barrel on it with a pistol grip, because it's compact, it's lightweight, it's less, how should we say, it's less of a burden to carry in the field. I mean, I work in forestry. I've worked in forestry now how many years? 28 years. And I've met a lot of bears. And when it comes to bears, I met a lot of moose and calves, big bull moose, grizzly bears, black bears. I just live in that part of the world. I mean, I don't live that far from Alaska. And one thing we have is lots of bears and lots of fish. Giant rivers, mountains, and coastal areas. We have lots of bears. And so I have lots of experience with bears. And when I was young and inexperienced, I knew that I needed to have a firearm for personal defense against these animals. Constantly having run-ins with these animals. Bear spray wasn't really a kind of a thing yet back in the day. Back in the early 1990s, mid 1990s. Not that I was aware of. So I carried a 12 gauge shotgun. And obviously I needed to practice with it more, because if I had done so, I wouldn't be carrying a 12 gauge shotgun with a pistol grip. Now this is just for your consideration, for those of you out there who are real believers with that convenience trumps practicality. If you believe that convenience trumps practicality, then I would urge you to reconsider. So this is for your consideration. I'll tell you the story. There were four of us. All of us were forestry technologists, and we had to go into this 300 hectare clear cut that was done way back in the mid 80s. They tried to replant it and replant it and replant it, and the trees just never took. So you would see these islands of where some of the stock had actually taken, and then you'd see these giant areas that the trees, the seedlings, the trees that had been planted, they just never took. They never put any roots down, and we just kept replanting it. Instead of doing smart forestry, going in there and diagnosing what the problem was, and doing it right, we just kept replanting it. That's just the way they seemed to do forestry back then. But regardless, we were there, 300 hectare clear cut. Now, a hectare, there's like 300 hectares. This is a big area. One hectare is 2.2 acres. So for you American people that are still imperial, put that into perspective. So I had 1/4 of this 300 hectare area, and I had to inspect it. It's going to take days to do this. And I had the lower southwestern quadrant of the block. It was the lowest terrain recess on the terrain area we were in. It was the lowest recess, so it was a water receiving site. A significant portion of it was. So I started, and I was about 5 hectares into my inspection, and I realized that I was walking into this basically marshland, sedge grass. Now you could see where there was deciduous trees had been growing around this marshland, kind of the sedge grass area, in a concave depression in the terrain. All the water was draining into this terrain, into this recess, and it was essentially unplantable. The water, sound as you're walking through the sphagnum moss and standing water. And I'm frankly, at this point in time, I'm looking at this and I'm going, geez, they planted it. We call that wasted trees in forestry. And it's unplantable ground. But they planted it anyway. So that's a fine, right? If you're a tree planter, you know what I'm talking about. They planted it, and it's a large area. So I was thinking, geez, I might have to traverse this area out. And then suddenly I heard something up ahead of me. And I started thinking to myself, okay, let's look at this area. And so I started to study the immediate area that I was in. And I looked down, I saw an old stump. Now, there's a whole bunch of dead trees on the edge of the sedge grass area because water table had obviously been going up. And these, I think they were alder trees. They've been dead for a few years. And they were being ripped up. You could see that there was ants in them, and something had been breaking apart these trees down to their stumps, and there was ants in them. They were eating the ants. There's ants boiling out of a stump in front of me. Oh, I keep studying the ground, and I realize that some of the sedge grass has been pushed over, and the morning dew has been knocked off. I'm not alone. So I try to find a spot where I can step up above the sedge grass, because this is taller than me. I can't see over it. I didn't have a view. All I had was sedge grass in front of me like this. Stood up on this old rotten log so I could see over top of it, and then there he was, black bear right there, 15 meters away, right in front of me. It's a good thing I stopped. He was standing up on his hind 2 feet, looking at me over the sedge grass. I'm doing the same thing to him. I start shouting at him. Of course, I did have that 12 gauge with the pistol grip in it, chambered around and pointed it at him. Started shouting at the bear. Then suddenly another bear popped up behind me, 15 meters behind me. I'm between two black bears. Now, this hedge grass had to be at least 6 feet tall, maybe taller. He's standing over that. Both of them were. So they're over 6 feet tall. They're probably in the neighborhood of around maybe 7 feet tall to the top of his ears while he's standing on his hind 2 feet. So they weren't small black bears. One of them could easily have probably taken me down. I mean, if I was going to fight them, I don't know. I don't know how it was going to work. The only defense mechanism I had on me was that 12 gauge pump shotgun, that Maverick Model 88, 12 gauge, 2 3/4 slugs. I got on my radio. I'm shouting at both these bears now. I'm between the two of them. Like, you always try to keep the battle space to your front, so you have situational awareness. I had to keep doing this. I'm standing on this log. If I get off the log, I lose visual. I'm anchored to that spot. If I move off of it, I can't see anything. They're both just standing there looking at me. I'm shouting at them. I get on the radio. I tell my colleagues, I've got 2 black bears here. They're a problem. I'm going to fire a warning shot. They say, understood. All of them, they acknowledge the transmission. I fired a warning shot. I fired it in the air, and I'm holding it on kind of a 45, but upwards, like this, with a pistol grip. Mistake. When that thing recoiled, it came back, and I yanked something in my wrist. It's not supposed to be pointing up like this when you fire it, okay? It recoiled down like that, and I heard something in my wrist. Right. I have a damaged wrist now. I mean, it's seriously hurting. Something is gone, or maybe I pulled a tendon or something in it. The recoil was more than I was expecting. Bears didn't budge. They barely even flickered an ear. Just kind of looking at me like this. Direct eye contact, both of them. Now, I don't think these were very old bears, but they were big, well-fed bears. I don't think they were very old. I'm thinking maybe 3, maybe 4-year-old bear. Like fully grown bears, but not that old. Healthy-looking animals. They're definitely exhibiting predatory behavior. Okay, they weren't going anywhere. There's a stare down. I'm trying to show who's the chief. They ain't listening. And suddenly one of them goes down, and I can see the sedge grass start moving towards me. He's charging me. I didn't have a shot. I couldn't see. I had no certainty of what was going on. So I decided, split-second decision, I'm going to vector off on a 45 degree and start making my way out of this area, so I have some more situational awareness. I need to get out of this edge grass so I can see. I make my way out and I can see a crack to my right. I look up and there's a terrain feature that's above me. One of the bears has run up to the top of this terrain feature and he's looking into this, and he's looking at me in the sedge grass. I'm coming up, but not towards him. The other bear, I'm doing shoulder checks. I'm looking behind me like this. There's all kinds of noise going on. Because I'm actually moving at a fairly decent clip. I'm not sticking around. I get to the top of the terrain depression. I don't see any bears. I continue along at a very heightened level of awareness. Chest is beating, heart is going like crazy, sweat coming down. I'm getting out of there. Finally get up to the road. I've got a view on either side of me, nothing but willows along the sides. I just try to collect myself and make my way back towards the truck, which, I was probably in the neighborhood of around 700 meters away from that truck, from where I initiated my point of commencement for my survey. Statistically valid survey, you got to walk every single hectare and examine each of those trees to determine if they were planted correctly for payment purposes. So what is the moral of the story? Because I shot that shotgun into the air, I had injured my wrist. Now, if I had to, I would have fired that thing, of course. But I had absolutely, after that experience, I had absolutely no, shall we say, confidence that if I needed to point that shotgun at that bear and shoot it, that I would hit it. It's more kind of hope. I'm hoping that I'm going to be on target if I pull that trigger. Since then, I sold that shotgun the way it was configured. I sold it immediately as soon as I got back home. Maverick 88. Wasn't a great shotgun, but young man, didn't have a lot of money. That's what I used. What is the moral of the story? Well, have you ever seen somebody shoot one of those things rapid fire? Well, I've seen people take one shot, boom, and it was up here. They're looking down the barrel, they got the pistol grip here, they got the thing way up there, and they're actually, just because, it's got to be pretty close to your face. You can only hold that thing out so far. Or if you're trying to get an aim shot with one of those things, you're guaranteed you're going to come back and you're going to punch yourself in the face if you pull that trigger. I've seen it so many times now. I warn people, you don't want to shoot that thing, right? You don't want to practice with that thing. Just reconfigure it or sell it. Get a proper shotgun with a buttstock. So you've got command, you've got control. You can aim and hit what you're shooting at. And you're not going to hurt yourself. You're going to hit what you're aiming at. It's for your consideration, folks. Right? I mean, if you've developed your craft and developed your skill to the point where you have a high level of certainty and confidence that you're going to be able to hit because you've practiced, then hey, hats off to you. Don't change anything. Okay? But I'm telling you, man, I don't think I would have been able to hit that bear. Not in the kind of footing that I was on, this rotten old log that it was standing on. It was kind of crumbling under my feet. I'm shouting, high level of alertness. I've got adrenaline running through my system. It's fight or freeze. Flight, fight, or freeze is usually those three things. I was kind of a combination of all three at the same time. Time was going by very slow. It all happened so fast, but you have to kind of break it down chronologically as to what could have transpired, and then put yourself back in that situation again and think, what are you going to do that's going to give yourself the best survival or fighting chance to get out of it? And I'm telling you, in my opinion, it doesn't include a pistol grip. Hope you folks are doing great. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf up.